All right, everybody, welcome in to another episode of the NFL Seekers podcast. Today, we are going to be giving you guys our NFL Seekers Consensus Fantasy Football Top 10 wide receiver rankings. It's a combined ranking based on all three of our host rankings, and this episode will have a lot of big implications for the first few rounds of your drafts, and it'll be interesting. How are you guys?
Yeah, I'm doing good. Um, I'm excited to talk about these guys. Granted, we pretty much have all the same guys in the same area, so it's nothing too crazy unlike our last one, but these are still definitely worth talking about. You got to decide where you want to take these guys, how high you want to take them, and all that type of stuff.
Yeah, this is why you don't do the or why you would consider doing the zero running back strategy because of the top 10 receivers, because it's so receiver heavy and it started to really shift towards that way in the last couple of years to where people are not taking running backs for the first three rounds, back to back to back. It's now becoming wide receiver, wide receiver, wide receiver, and then waiting on those running backs. So, it's become a real pass heavy league. And it's exciting, but the preseason, we just finished up week 2 of the preseason. Anyone you guys would like to shout out?
When you consider like fantasy football implications, at least, I caught that Broncos and 49ers game. I'll say that Debo looked really electric. CMC didn't play, so I guess that kind of fits Debo's mold. So I guess we'll have to see what he's like when CMC does play. And I will say that Russ looked really rejuvenated. He looked athletic and he was moving around really good. He had some good scrambles, and Javonte Williams is back, and it was his first game back since his bad injury, and he looked really good. He didn't really take a step down. He was cutting good, and they fed him the first four plays of the game. So it was exciting, and I'm excited for Javonte. He's going to be an absolute steal this year. And I caught that Bears second game, and Roschon Johnson looks awesome. He looks like a perfect fit for the Bears offense, and he's already getting reps with the ones, and that's earlier than I expected even, and I was really high on him. So if you're in a dynasty league or a deeper league, get Roschon Johnson. He's going to be awesome. I think he'll be starting for that offense sooner rather than later. And Zay Flowers had an electric touchdown tonight as we're recording. So target those rookie wide receivers because they're going to win your guys' leagues. What about you, Shane? Anyone stand out to you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of all the rookie wide receivers, but I think Jalen Warren is worth mentioning. Assuming Najee would ever go down, Jalen Warren is an instant plug and play. I think he's just like a Samaje Perine of last year. And who knows, he might even get more work, even just splitting the backfield, not an even split, but taking some carries away from Najee in that backfield. But yeah, if Najee were to ever go down, Jalen Warren would be an instant plug and play for you.
He had that
Yeah.
electric touchdown. He was hauling on that touchdown. That was fun. I think there's a lot more of that to come too. He's a really, really solid running back. I think he's going to get a pretty good split with Najee.
Definitely.
Yeah, there's a lot of exciting guys going on in this preseason. It's been fun to watch, but I just want to throw out another two players. Deuce Vaughn, has a knack for getting in the end zone. He scored, in back-to-back games, which is exciting. And I know he's really undersized and really small, but he looks like he could be, the next Darren Sproles or something. He looks like he's got that in him. And, I feel like people are kind of sleeping on him just because of size, but he's a stud. And then I also want to shout out Sam Howell going 19 of 25 for 188 yards and 2 touchdowns. Looked really solid. Looked like he had really good chemistry with Jahan Dotson already. And, kind of went out there and showed us what we kind of expected. And I think these Washington receivers could be sleepers.
Yeah, for people that say preseason doesn't matter, I think all of these things have shades of fantasy football implications. I think they can have impacts. And so, yeah, target all those players. I think they're going way too late. And yeah, those were some good guys. Do you guys want to get into our receiver rankings, top 10?
Yes, sir. Let's do it.
All right, we will get into our first guy, and that is the Detroit Lions receiver, Amon-Ra St. Brown. We have him as our wide receiver 10. I have him as my wide receiver 8. Josh has him as his wide receiver 9, and Shane has him the lowest at wide receiver 11. I love Amon-Ra. I'm the highest on him, and man, I think he has a real chance of finishing as the wide receiver 1 in fantasy. It might sound bold, but he is a PPR machine, and if you're in a PPR league, then you have to move him up your board because he's going to be the focal point of their offense. They don't have Jameson Williams for 6 weeks, and even when he's out there, he's kind of been a struggle. He hasn't really proved too much, and they lost DJ Chark. All they really have is Marvin Jones and like Josh Reynolds. So it's looking like Amon-Ra's offense and this Lions offense is going to be electric. We know with Ben Johnson calling plays, so I'm really excited for Amon-Ra. I'm interested to see Shane has him outside of his top 10, but yeah, I think I'm taking Amon-Ra over Garrett Wilson if it's a PPR league, just because of how safe he is in that PPR format.
Yeah. I'll let Shane speak on because I'll talk a little bit like, kind of say what Danny said a little bit because we're definitely higher. But Shane, tell us why he's out of your top 10.
I mean, I still like him. I still love to have him on my team, but all the guys I have above him, like, Garrett Wilson, for example, who have one spot above him, it comes down to the situation. Garrett Wilson with a Hall of Fame quarterback, that definitely gives me the edge on Garrett Wilson. It's tough. You really, at the end of the day, you can't necessarily go wrong with Amon-Ra or Garrett Wilson, like we're mentioning. But personally, I like Garrett Wilson's situation better. So yeah, that's why I do have Garrett Wilson one spot ahead of Amon-Ra.
Both. I feel like Amon-Ra this year is just such a safe pick. And I'll be honest, I think this Detroit Lions offense is going to be absolutely electric with Ben Johnson. I mean, they showed last year that, they can put up points. And Jared Goff could prove that he could sling the ball around. And Amon-Ra St. Brown going into year 3. And I think this is going to be his biggest year yet. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't think he's played a full 17 games in either season yet, right?
I don't believe so. He definitely
Amon-Ra he played 17, 2021. Last year he played 16.
Okay, so he missed essentially just one game. But his target share in Detroit is absolutely fantastic. 146 targets last year and 119 before. I think we're only going to see that go up. This guy is going to be a 100+ reception guy in PPR leagues. And I feel like he is just such a safe bet in that Lions offense where he's just going to be the true focal point, the true number one. And, Jameson Williams is suspended the first 6 weeks. And I don't think they're very high on Jameson Williams. Dan Campbell came out and said he'll never be a wide receiver 1. So that kind of just tells you something about how they feel about him. But Amon-Ra St. Brown, this guy I think is going to kind of take the league by storm. He reminds me of like a young Keenan Allen in a sense, where this guy just gets open. He can run all the routes and he's smooth. But I feel like he's got a better potential for more touchdowns than a Keenan Allen could ever have. So, get Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's borderline end of your first, if you're in a 12-team PPR league, I think he's borderline first round pick, in my opinion. I really do.
That's bold. That's a bold take.
That is a bold take, but I see this guy. I might be too low on him. I see him finishing his top 5, but this is just, I have to have him at 9, but I could see a world where Amon-Ra St. Brown finishes top 5 in fantasy.
Yeah, he's going as the 6th pick in the second round right now as the wide receiver 9. And I do find myself taking him as like the 2nd or 3rd pick in the second round a lot. Like I think he's an absolute steal right there. So yeah, I'm with you. I think right outside of the first round, I'm definitely comfortable taking him. And he has a lot of upside. The only negative to him would be injury. And that's the same with any player. So I can't think of any other possible negative other than Jared Goff, who didn't really he fed him very well last year. They had a good connection. So I'm not really worried about Amon-Ra, and I'm really excited for him. I'm trying to draft him as much as I can.
So Stores, let's put your money where your mouth is. I'm going to give you some guys that are going at the end of the first round, and you tell me if you'd rather have them or Amon-Ra.
You call me out in front of on the live pod. You're gonna call me out. All right, let's do it.
Okay.
All right, fine.
Both the last pick in the first round, Ceedee Lamb or Amon-Ra.
That's tough. I'm gonna go Amon-Ra. I'm gonna go Amon-Ra over Ceedee Lamb right now. I am.
Well, then your rankings don't reflect.
Yeah, what?
I'm just gonna, dude. All of a sudden, my heart changes on the daily, and right now I am higher on Amon-Ra St. Brown.
All right.
I do think he'll finish higher. I think Ceedee Lamb's a better receiver. I do think Ceedee Lamb is a better receiver. I think Amon-Ra St. Brown in the offense, Ben Johnson's offense is going to look substantially different than a Mike McCarthy offense. But Ceedee Lamb, they're both wide receiver 1s in their offense, but I think Ceedee Lamb's the better player, and I think he's probably the safer pick. But upside pick right now, I think Amon-Ra is a better upside pick.
Okay, fine. It's running back. Would you rather have Derrick Henry or Amon-Ra?
Amon-Ra.
See, I am a running back fiend. I always have been.
Derrick Henry, though, of all people, that Derrick Henry's not even
Derrick Henry
a top
is
7
drastically
running back.
underrated this year, and I don't care what anyone says. Derrick Henry is still a generational running back, and I don't really see him regressing because that's just not who he is. But that one's like a 50-50 split. It would depend on my mood that day. But since I am in an Amon-Ra St mood, then I'm going to go Amon-Ra.
Faint mood. All right, last one. Saquon or Amon-Ra?
All right, Saquon, that's easy.
He's going at the end of the first.
Yes, I mean that is Saquon. I think Saquon has the potential to be a top 5 running back, and I know fantasy switching to wide receiver heavy, but I still am a running back fiend, and I probably will end up going running back because I'm weird and I do stuff like that. But I don't know. I still feel like the running back position is more valuable than wide receivers.
Not if you're in a PPR league. It's 2023. So if you're in a PPR league, don't take running backs over receivers, especially this year with how high power these top receivers are. If you can take these top receivers, unless you can get like a Davante Adams in round 2 and a really good running back in round 1. But yeah, don't. If you're in a PPR league, value receivers higher.
Yeah, I don't know about that.
You can get running backs later.
Wide receiver depth is so much heavier, though. It is so much heavier. You can find wide receiver 2 and 3s. And, if you're drafting a running back, there's really only one running back it's valued to each team, where receivers, where you have a Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, you have a Keenan Allen, a Mike Williams, and a Quentin Johnston. You have
Well,
a
yeah, but
Hollywood
if
Brown
you're in a two flex league, then you're going to start 2 receivers, so you're going to take early and late. You just got to take receivers, especially if you're in a deeper league.
Yeah. That's you can't really overvalue one position from the other. I mean, guys with I don't know. I feel like running back's harder to get because it's just not as plentiful. But I don't know. It's.
I disagree. In 2023, this year, I definitely disagree. But anything else you guys want to talk about Amon-Ra?
No, let's talk about the better wide receiver.
All right, we'll get into our NFL seekers wide receiver 9. It's someone that we're higher on the consensus, who's going as a wide receiver 10 on consensus. Me and Josh both have him as our wide receiver 10, me and Shane both have him as our wide receiver 10, and Josh has him as wide receiver 8.
Yes, sir.
And I understand why he does. It's really exciting having Aaron Rodgers come over. It's a huge boost to what he's had in the past, and it's just really exciting. It definitely does give Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers vibes. It's exciting. Number 17. There's so much you can say about Garrett Wilson. He was awesome as a rookie, and he's an obvious second-year breakout candidate. It's going to happen. He's going to be awesome at the focal point of this offense for sure. The receiving core doesn't really move me at all. Dalvin Cook and Breece Hall will be a little bit annoying, but Garrett Wilson's going to be by far the best player on this offense and electric with Aaron Rodgers.
That's exactly what I was going to say. Another reason why I do have Garrett Wilson ahead of Amon-Ra, it's seriously because of that second-year breakout. If you look at Amon-Ra's second-year breakout, he went from 227 fantasy point PPR points to 227 to 267 fantasy PPR points. 119 targets his rookie year to 146 targets his rookie year. I think Garrett Wilson's in for a much bigger breakout than what Amon-Ra finished as. That's just why I have him above him last year. Garrett Wilson, with all his quarterback struggles, and as a rookie, he finished as a top 20 wide receiver 19. Amon-Ra finished as wide receiver 8. So I just think Garrett Wilson's in for a massive second-year breakout.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, Garrett Wilson, I just picture him as just a clone of Davante Adams. And that's my biggest thing is I think of Davante Adams and Aaron Rodgers. I think Garrett Wilson and Aaron Rodgers is going to be the same thing. And Garrett Wilson, I think why I have him one spot above Amon-Ra St. Brown, he's a better prospect. I feel like he's a better receiver, just to be honest. I feel like Amon-Ra is a really good at just being a possession wide receiver. But I feel like Garrett Wilson, the upside is just there a little bit more. And I mean, his quarterback play last year was pretty pathetic. And he caught 83 targets on 140, or he got 83 receptions on 147 targets, which is really not that good. But I mean, it was his quarterbacks. And so you replace what he had last year with Aaron Rodgers, and I think we're going to see new levels to Garrett Wilson's game. And I'm here for it. I'm all in. I think Garrett Wilson, I have him at 8. And again, I kind of said the same thing with Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I mean, these guys are so fun to talk about. And Garrett Wilson entering year 2 with Aaron Rodgers is just so exciting. And I mean, another bold take. I feel like Garrett Wilson could finish top 5 with Aaron Rodgers. I feel like the receptions are going to be there. I feel like the touchdowns. I mean, he only scored 4 touchdowns last year. I'm pretty sure he's going to double that this year. And so, I mean, if you're looking for upside, Garrett Wilson is your man.
Yeah, he's got massive upside. I would say top 5 upside is being generous. He's got like top 2 upside. He's a beast. He only had 4 touchdowns last year, so he's an obvious upgrade candidate. He's going to be awesome. Aaron Rodgers is going to love him in the red zone. I can't say enough. They're probably going to get closer to 10 touchdowns this year.
To be fair, I mean, these first 5 guys we're talking about, 10 through 5 or 10 through 6, I guess. Any of those guys could finish in the top 5. All these guys have what it takes to finish top 5, even top 3. It's seriously, all these guys are. It's the year of the wide receiver. It's running back first round, and like you're crazy if you take a wide receiver. This year is the year of the wide receivers.
Yeah, it really is. It is the year. If you're going to go all in on receivers, it's this year because receivers are going to go off the board early and they're going to go fast.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra are going literally right next to each other in drafts in the second round. So all these guys that we're going to be talking about are really close, and it's hard to separate them. So if we're being negative, that's kind of why we have to pick at anything we can. Anything else you guys want to say on GW?
Now let's move on to number 8.
All right, we'll get into our NFL Seekers number 8 receiver, and he is the consensus wide receiver 7. I have him as my wide receiver 9. Josh has him at 10, and Shane has him at 7. I love AJ Brown, man. I had him last year, and I traded for him mid-season actually, and the man completely saved my season by himself. When Hurts throws a ball up to him, a go ball down the sideline, you know he's 100% coming down with it. It's pretty crazy. It's so exciting watching him. He's been putting up great fantasy football numbers ever since he was a rookie in Tennessee, and he was so good last year. I think it's just gonna go up in production this year, and that Eagles offense is going to be fireworks. They're going to be throwing a little bit more, I believe, with Brian Johnson coming as the offensive coordinator. So it's really exciting. AJ Brown's just a complete monster, and him and Davante Smith are going to be impossible to stop.
Yeah, it's pretty simple for me as to why I have AJ Brown, why I have him the highest out of the 3 of us. He's a big play machine. Even without big plays, he's going to be getting the targets to make his way up to a top 12 wide receiver finish on a week by week basis. And he's a touchdown monster. He had 11 touchdowns last year, so you can almost guarantee a touchdown out of him, or a big play out of him, or both, or a crap ton of targets. It's like he's one of the safest guys that we're going to talk about, I feel like.
Yeah, he used to be just a boomer bust guy, but he finished as the wide receiver 6 last year, and he was so consistent every single week. He was one of the more consistent receivers, so that's just huge. And he's a high floor option now, which is awesome.
And he has a great quarterback throwing to him. So,
yeah, I mean, he is a pretty safe bet this year. And the only reason I have him a little bit lower is just because the big plays do scare me, because it felt like, and he almost did, but the crazy thing is he almost had a big play every single week. It was nuts.
That's what I'm saying.
I mean, he was like an 80-yard touchdown every week. And for some odd reason, that scares me, because it feels like there is a drop off that is like inevitable to come when you're like relying on the big play, even though he was so consistent at the big play last year. But I mean, and one other thing that scares me too is he had 145 targets and only came down with 88 of them. And so, I mean, there was 57 receptions that, wasn't connected. So, that's not a great stat. I mean, but a lot of his passes are deep balls, and they are going for that home run hit. And if I'm being nitpicky, that is what scares me about AJ Brown. But I mean, he's in such an electric offense with such a good line. They're going to have time to throw. He's going to have time to get open down the field, and he's going to come up with those big plays because he is a beast. I mean, he's one of the more physical wide receivers in the NFL. And you just look at the picture that Danny has of him right here, and you can just tell this dude plays wide receiver. Like, what? He looks like a linebacker. but AJ Brown is electric, and he's a beast. But if I am being nitpicky, the boomer bust plays do scare me.
Yeah, like I said earlier, you see him running down the sideline with a corner draped over him. You know for a fact that's going to be a touchdown. It's pretty crazy how often he was able to do it last year. But yeah, he's an absolute monster.
Preach, preach. He freaks me out though. I don't know. I see myself not drafting him as much, even though I should, because he's so good and there's no reason I shouldn't. And he finished so high. But again, I don't know why. Maybe it doesn't scare you guys, but it's just like I saw so many 50+ yard touchdowns from the dude last year, and it's felt like that was like, majority of his fantasy points.
I like it. I like upside, so I like the boomer bust with AJ Brown, especially with how consistent he kind of is too.
Yeah, I like it.
Anything else you want to say on AJ Brown?
He had a 68-yard catch one game. He had a 78-yard catch one game, a 48-yard, 43. It's crazy. 54 week one. It's crazy. It's crazy.
It is.
You get that type of stuff.
But I mean, that's huge for fantasy. When you're sitting on your couch on a Sunday and just one play gives you like 16 points, you're like, feels good.
Oh, yeah, all of a sudden Scott Hansen comes in with the breaking news, and it's your wide receiver going down the field for a massive touchdown. It's a great feeling.
There's nothing better, and you're for surely gonna get that with AJ Brown. So you'll be happy on Sundays.
All right, we'll get into our wide receiver 7. It is the division rival of AJ Brown. It is Ceedee Lamb, who's going one spot higher than AJ Brown in ADP. He's going as the wide receiver 6. I have him as my wide receiver 6, Josh at 7, and Shane has him at 8. Man, I love Ceedee Lamb so much. I think a bigger breakout season is inevitable this year with that coming back healthy. I'm really excited. I know that he's losing a really good offensive coordinator, but I honestly think CeeDee's so good that the offensive coordinator won't even affect him, and he'll be just a complete focal point of this offense, which has a great team around him. And he finishes the wide receiver 6 last year, and week 8 on, he was quietly the wide receiver 2 in fantasy points per game, which is incredible. Like I didn't even realize that. Ceedee Lamb is just awesome, and that was, and not the best season for the Cowboys last year. So I see him taking an even bigger step up, and I think he has real league winning potential. He's going as the 12th pick in the first round, right next to AJ Brown. So you're gonna have to decide between CeeDee or AJ Brown, but I think I am taking the Cowboys. CeeDee, I'm really excited for him this year.
So I mean, CeeDee and AJ Brown they're so close to me. Honestly, they could flip flop day by day. The reason I have AJ Brown one spot higher than CeeDee comes down to just AJ Brown being on a better, sort of safer offense, but also that could bite you in the butt because CeeDee, although he's a little more volatile than AJ Brown, he has more. I know we just talked about boom, but CeeDee does have more boom games. CeeDee Lamb averaged last year more targets than AJ Brown. He had 9.2 targets a game. He averaged 6.3 receptions. AJ Brown was 5.2, 5.3. So he averaged a whole reception more. And his catch percentage was at 70%, and AJ Brown's was in the upper 50s, I think. I can't remember. It could have been low. Actually, it could have been low 60s. And he only had 2 less touchdowns than AJ Brown. So, I mean, maybe you don't get the touchdowns, as many touchdowns from CeeDee as you do AJ, but you get them. You make up for it with his receptions. And a guy like that getting that many targets, that's a beautiful thing to have in your wide receiver one. But it's hard for me. Like truly, if I was on the clock right now and it's between CeeDee and AJ Brown, I don't know what I'd do. Like I would be stuck. Truly, technically, I guess I'd be taking AJ Brown, but it'd be hard to pass up on CeeDee.
Yeah, I get that. But I mean, but CeeDee through 3 years has steadily done better every year. So, and I mean, in 2020, it was 74 receptions on 111 targets and 5 touchdowns. And then he goes 2021, 79 receptions, 120 targets, 6 touchdowns. And then he took a little bit bigger of a leap in 2022 and goes 107 receptions on 156 targets and 9 touchdowns. So he's just slowly getting better every single year, and he's so consistent. And I mean, he's truly the wide receiver 1 in this offense. I don't know how pass heavy this offense is going to be, but I mean, they're going to throw the ball a lot. I mean, every NFL team does, even though they might run the ball a whole heck of a lot more than they throw it, they're still going to throw the ball a lot. And CeeDee is going to be the beneficiary of most of those targets. And I don't think he'll let us down. I think he truly is. And why I love CeeDee so much is I think he's so talented. I think he's one of the more talented wide receivers in the NFL. And it shows. It shows in the NFL game. In NFL games, I mean, he comes down with ridiculous catches. They can't cover him one-on-one. He can run any kind of route, intermediate, short, long. And the touchdown potential is there with Ceedee too. So I mean, I feel like he's a pretty safe overall bet. Don't love Mike McCarthy, but I do love Ceedee.
Yeah, if you can get him as the last pick in your first round, then just get him because he's going to be fun. He's going to be really fun to have on your team. And if me and Josh are talking him up like this, like me and Josh are truly lower on Mike McCarthy and Brian Schottenheimer than anyone on earth. And we're still talking up Ceedee like this because we just know how talented this guy is. He's so good. He gets better every year, and he's really good every year. So I can't even imagine what it's going to look like this year. I'm really excited.
Oh man. But have you guys seen Dak Prescott in training camp? Those videos are scary.
I mean, last year he had a broken thumb on his throwing hand, so I think he'll still be better this year with a healthier hand. I'm not too worried.
I saw him throw a wheel route to Deuce Vaughn in triple coverage.
Honestly, the more reckless and the more picks he throws is probably the better for CD's fantasy output. So we'll take it because I'm not drafting Dak in fantasy anyway. So that might be better for CD.
Are you saying Deuce can't go up and get that ball, Josh?
I am.
Deuce isn't high pointing that ball over a corner.
It's like J-Ron Curse, Trayvon Diggs, and gosh, like literally triple coverage, and Deuce Vaughn is just like and it was like 10 yards short, and it was just the easiest pick I've ever seen.
Don't sleep on Deuce.
Oh man, so funny. Did you see that video of Trayvon Diggs telling Dak to shut the F up or something?
I
don't know what's going on over there in Dallas, but I don't know. There's something in the air weird over there.
I'm sick of Dak.
I am too. I'm sick of Dak, and I'm sick of freaking McCarthy holding this talented ass roster back. I mean, I feel like they have a little different culture with a little bit different people, they'd be Super Bowl contenders.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but end of the story. CD's going to be awesome. The Cowboys are still going to be a really good team, and CD's going to be electric for them. We will get on to our wide receiver 6, who is going as a consensus wide receiver 5. He's going as the 10th pick overall in the first round. I have him as my wide receiver 5, and Shane and Josh both have him at wide receiver 6. I love this man. He's apparently unhappy with his role in his offense, which is like 154 targets and being the complete focal point of like a top 3 NFL offense and probably the best receiver situation you could ever be in ever. But I mean, if he's unhappy with that and they're just going to feed him more, then I'm definitely taking him. I feel like people are just kind of fading Stefon Diggs for no reason, just because he's been so good and so consistent for so consistently long. I'm really excited for Stefon Diggs. I feel like he's an obvious late first round pick that's going to easily pay back value, and he's a high upside option as well. So I love him, and they didn't even really bring in any weapons other than a tight end who's really good. So I'm not scared about Gabe Davis taking too much from him.
I mean, you want to talk about safe. This dude is a safe pick right here. Last year, 11 touchdowns. That's amazing. He averaged almost 10 targets a game, more than CD, and almost 7 receptions a game, more than CD. He's on a great offense. He's the clear number 1 guy. I've never had him. I feel like Stefon Diggs is kind of a weird player to draft. To me personally, it seems like he goes in some odd places where late in the past, it's always been like, running back has been the focal point, but now that it's the wide receiver, I truly hope I have a later round pick so I can get a guy like Stefon Diggs. Then hopefully our league can kind of muff some picks and I can get another wide receiver at the start of the second, like the ones we just talked about. I think starting out wide receiver this year, if you have a back half pick, is going to win leagues. If you start out with a guy like Stefon Diggs, last year he had weeks 1 through 13. He had 2 games that he finished outside the top 20. Other than that, he was 19 or better. It's like a guaranteed top 20 finish almost every week from this guy. That's winning you games right there.
Yeah, to your point, if you just trust yourself to draft hit on running backs late in the draft, just throw a bunch of dart at running backs and get those really good, solid receivers that are going to get you the PPR points early that you don't have to risk. And then you can still throw darts at receivers later too. I think that's the move this year for sure with how good these guys are.
It's looking at Stefon Diggs' stats since he's been in Buffalo is kind of mind-boggling. I mean, this dude has not had under 150 targets in 3 years, and he's had over 100 receptions in the last 3 years. He scored 8+ touchdowns in the last 3 years, and he's pretty much been healthy. I mean, games played 16, 17, 16. So he's going to be on the field 98% of the time. But it's kind of amazing. And he hasn't had under 1,200 yards. It's been 1,200 and up since he's been on the Bills. I mean, so like, this rumor that he's unhappy with his situation, it's like, you are being consistently fed and one of the top receivers in the NFL for the last 3 years. And you're playing with Josh Allen. And yeah, there's no one pushing you for targets. I mean, the Bills' next best receiver is a rookie tight end. So, I mean, Stefon Diggs is as safe as they come. And if you're picking in the back half of the round, or back half of the draft, get Stefon Diggs on your team. Like I like Shane just said, I would love to pick like number 12 and go wide receiver, or even like a Nick Chubb and a Stefon Diggs as your 12, as at the 112 and then the 2-1. That would feel so good. And then you could even possibly get a Josh Allen at the at the end of the second. So I mean, or sorry, the end of the third. But it's exciting. I mean, Stefon Diggs is an exciting player, and he is I mean, like Shane, wasn't he wide receiver 1 through like the first 12 weeks of fantasy or something like that last year?
He was definitely wide receiver 1 at the trade deadline. I know for a fact he was awesome. And he finishes the wide receiver 4.
Yeah. Yeah. So I mean, Stefon Diggs, he is kind of, and I almost feel like my ranking's now too low on him. But I mean, he is kind of like Danny said, the forgotten about dude, and for no reason, for no good reason.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that they're just going to feed him more with him unhappy with his role, so they're just going to run him into the ground, and I'm really excited for it.
Last year was kind of a down year for him. He had his least amount of targets last year, and he still finished as the wide receiver 4. So if it's only up from here this year from last, he's probably going to finish better than that. And me and Josh and Danny, for that matter, are too low on him.
Yeah.
Literally. Awesome. Now that I'm thinking about it, yeah, we're all get Stefon Diggs. I don't know what our rankings are, but get Stefon Diggs. He's worth it.
All right. Do you guys want to get into our next guy?
Let's do it.
All right. It is Davante Adams, who finishes the wide receiver 3 last year. He is going as the wide receiver 8. So all 3 of us are higher on him than consensus. That wide receiver 8 consensus ranking is just absurd and makes zero sense. It literally makes zero sense. I guess we'll talk about it soon. We have him as our wide receiver 5. I have him at 7. Shane has him at 5, and Josh has him at 3. So me and Josh have him 4 spots apart, which is pretty incredible, but we're both still high on him technically. And I mean, you can't say anything bad about Davante Adams. The guy is an absolute target machine, 180 last year with 14 touchdowns. So there definitely is a regression coming for sure, but it's not going to be as big as people are expecting from him finishing wide receiver 3 and now going as a wide receiver 8. That's very disrespectful, and it doesn't make any sense. Jimmy G and Derek Carr have absolutely nothing different about them. Derek Carr was horrible last year. As someone that watched all 22 of every single game of the Raiders, he was so bad, and Jimmy G is just as good. He's probably better in the red zone, and I'm not worried about Davante Adams. He's going to be a touchdown machine and just the focal point of that offense again.
I remember when we did our way too early rankings back in May or June. I think we were all a little bit lower on Davante, and as we were kind of diving into it more and talking about it with each other, we realized how absurd this guy is, even though he's as old as he is. And I was just kind of looking over some things, and I literally just laughed because he had 14 touchdowns last year. That's almost 1 touchdown a game. That's insane. For him to be going as wide receiver 8, that's probably one of the steals in the draft right there. As a wide receiver 8, you can get him if he's going that late. You can get him middle of the second round. We were just talking about guys like like Garrett Wilson and Amon-Ra going middle of the second round. Give me Davante Adams all day over those guys. Like that's crazy.
That's the league winning aspect that I was kind of talking about on why I'm taking receivers early for a change this year, is because if you can get Davante Adams in the second round, that could be a wide receiver one. If he finishes a wide receiver one, none of us would blink an eye. So, I mean, yeah, just incredible value.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like you guys are low on Davante Adams. I mean, this dude is 149 targets, 169 targets, 180 targets in his last 3 seasons, with over 100 receptions in each 3 seasons, 1,300 yards, 1,500, back-to-back 1,500 yard seasons, 3 straight seasons of over 10 plus touchdowns. I mean, he went 18 touchdowns, 11 touchdowns, and 14 touchdowns. I mean, and games played 14, 16, 7. There's no reason that you can't just feel as comfortable. I mean, he scored in 2020, and this is why I was so high on Garrett Wilson. In 2020 with Aaron Rodgers, in 14 games played, he scored 18 touchdowns.
That's what I was about to say. I was just that is crazy.
This dude scores, and he can. I mean, you just can't cover him. I mean, I'm a big Chargers fan, and they put Asante Samuel Jr. on this man. And I mean, he had him lost. I mean,
speaking of that, I'm a big Broncos fan, and Surtain had one player all season that got the better of him. One player that had the right to talk.
Davante Adams had him completely sauced.
Yeah, he got a game winner on him. Yeah, it was literally the one player that Surtain couldn't guard it. Davante Adams is just the best receiver like ever. He's incredible.
Yeah, and you guys are too low on him. I could even be too low on him. No, I mean, no, not at number 3.
There's some good receivers, and I've got beef with you over one of the guys, but
yeah,
let's get into the beef. Let's get into the beef.
Davante Adams is him, and if you're getting him in the second round, ridiculous.
All right, yep, Davante Adams is just the GOAT, and we'll get on to our next guy, and it's Tyreek Hill, who's going as the 6th overall pick in the first round, the wide receiver 3 consensus. We have him as our wide receiver 4. I have him as my wide receiver 3. Josh has him at 5, and Shane has him at 4. And Josh, you're definitely too low on him, man. I don't really understand how you could have Tyreek Hill at 5. I understand you're high on Adams, but this guy is an absolute monster. It's obvious. Every week he has like a 60-yard touchdown where the defense just completely loses him because he's unguardable by any NFL caliber corner. It's incredible what he can do. Even with the Waddle on the opposite of him, he'll put up some of the best production every single week. He's very consistent, and even without Tua, I feel like not having Tua is low key better for him and worse for Waddle, because the backup quarterback will just stare at Tyreek and not really throw to Waddle, and that's something that no one talks about. But Tua is a really good point guard for Waddle and Tyreek, and I really like what Tua did when they were all healthy last year. So I love Tyreek Hill. He's an absolute animal, all the upside in the world, and I feel like he's going a little too low.
Well, the only reason I have him really at number 5 is because of how good Jalen Waddle is. And in a weird world, I could see Jalen Waddle actually becoming the wide receiver 1 in this offense this next year. It's very possible, in my opinion. I know it sounds crazy, but I feel like I could see Jalen Waddle overtake Tyreek Hill this year. Highly unlikely, but definitely possible. And then again, I don't love Tua, even though Tua did feed the hell out of Tyreek Hill. I mean, he had 170 targets, which is definitely due for regression, in my opinion. That's absolutely insane. But I mean, he played lights out last year, and he 1,700 yards. You can't argue the stats; they were all there. They're fantastic. But I do see a world where there is a little regression, and I do feel like the Chargers kind of exposed the blueprints for the Dolphins and kind of how to stop that Mike McDaniel's offense. So I feel like the Dolphins will have to adjust. And so I don't know. There are definitely 4 receivers that I feel more comfortable with over Tyreek Hill this year. And so I'm going to stick to my guts and go that route. But Tyreek Hill is an absolute beast. He's the cheetah. He's awesome. And the fact that him and Jalen Waddle going to play together is so freaking cool. It's something you might never see again. 2 of the fastest receivers in the NFL.
You said you don't really like Tua. I don't, at this point with these type of wide receivers, like Tyreek, I don't necessarily think quarterback matters as much as people like you think. Last year he finished as the wide receiver 2 with Tua. In 2021 with Patrick Mahomes, he finished as the wide receiver 6.
Well, it was Tua, Teddy Bridgewater, and Skylar Thompson. He didn't take a step.
It was a
Skylar
carousel of
Thompson. It didn't
quarterbacks.
even matter who was out there.
Yeah,
They
exactly. That's what I'm
they
saying.
hyper target the hell out of him. And yeah, that's what I said. Like, that's what I meant. Like, it literally doesn't matter the quarterback. I think the worse the quarterback, the better for Tyreek's production because they're just going to hyper target him every play.
Yeah, I mean, you have a good point there, but I don't know. There's 4 guys, and you can argue it all you want, but there's 4 guys that I comfortably feel better with than Tyreek Hill.
And he only had 7 touchdowns last year on 170 targets, and the electric player that he is, the fastest player the NFL has ever seen, finishing as the wide receiver 2 with only 7 touchdowns. I mean, that's pretty incredible. I feel like there's more room to improve even. So I don't know. I think he's going to be huge this year and a huge winner.
What do you think about the Dolphins? I mean, their team didn't play as well the rest of the season. I mean, given it probably quarterback, because I mean, Tua got hurt. But after that Chargers game, I mean, Brandon Staley did kind of expose how to cover Tyreek Hill and a Jalen Waddle, in that McDaniel system. So how do you feel about that? I mean, I do believe they'll adjust and change, but how do you feel about it?
I don't think you can really stop that defense. I don't think there's a possible way that you can stop this defense, especially like Jets, Bills, and Patriots in their division. I still don't even think any of those teams will be able to stop them. Bill Belichick has never been able to stop Tyreek Hill. I don't know why Brandon Staley would be the one to break that mold, but no, I really don't see anything. I think Tua is such a really, really good point guard. Like, I think Tua is underrated at this point. Like, he's a really good quarterback for them.
The Chargers exposed that.
Danny, you guys won by like 3 points at home. It wasn't like exposed. It was a pretty close game, and Tua got hurt after. That's why
Tyreek Hill scored off of a fumble. 6.
Yeah, that's what he does. He's a monster.
That's fantasy points. That's
literally what he does. He scores on anything.
I didn't even get yards off of it. That was the most ridiculous play ever.
Oh my god, this kid just reminisces on Chargers past seasons.
Did they? Dude, the Dolphins weren't the same team after the Chargers.
Dude, they were. Did you watch them against the Packers? They were pretty good against the Packers, man. They looked pretty good to me all season. I don't know what you're talking about.
I mean, who cares how good or bad the Dolphins are, and who cares whose quarterback is Tyreek Hill?
Yeah.
It is Tyreek.
I'm probably too low on him, but
I have him at number 5, and I don't think top 5 is low on anyone. That's respecting Tyreek Hill.
I mean, considering his last 3 years, last year wide receiver 2, 2 years ago wide receiver 6, 3 years ago wide receiver 2.
Yeah, so by 2 or 6 to 6 5.
What did you just say?
I don't know. Okay, let's continue this discussion with the guy that I have lower than Tyreek Hill. We'll get into our wide receiver 3, and that is the Rams receiver Cooper Kupp, and that's because Josh has him at 2 for some reason, and Shane has him at 3. I have him wide receiver 4, which is perfect for him. I'll be honest, it is the spot for him. He's not going to be better than Tyreek Hill. He's already got hamstring problems. He's not going to practice until week 1. If you guys want a player that's questionable,
can I tell you? Can I interrupt you? Me. One stat I want to say: over Cooper Kupp's last 25 games, he's averaged 20, or was it? I think it was 20 or 28 games. Over the last 2 seasons, averaged 25 points per game. That's wide receiver 1. That is ridiculous. Cooper Kupp is him. Danny, you're too low on him. Don't disrespect
25 is like nothing. That's like what Tyreek Hill gets on one play.
Like
Tyreek Hill literally gets 25 points on one play, like every game. Like, I'm not even kidding. Like, that's nothing. 25 points, that's low. I expect
please chip in.
I will say, update, Cooper Kupp did return to practice today. He is back at practice. Hopefully doesn't re-aggravate anything. But to me, I mean, Cooper Kupp, he is, I feel like when you talk about consistency, it's Cooper Kupp. 2 years ago, wide receiver 1. Last year, he only played 8 games, got hurt in week 10, by week 7. And so the 8 games he played, his worst finish was wide receiver 19. He's consistent. He's going to be that dude. He's going to get all the targets. He has a great veteran quarterback throwing to him. Sure, he's on a kind of a meh offense. Hopefully they perform a little bit better than last year. I guess that's all I ask if I were to have Cooper Kupp, is that they're a little bit better than they were last year. He's going to be the dude. And last year he averaged 11 targets, over 8 receptions. He had 6 touchdowns in 8 games or 9 games. What did I say? 8 games. So yeah, Cooper Kupp's that dude. It's at this point, it's personally, obviously, I think my rankings are great. Cooper Kupp, Tyreek, it's close, but 1 and 2 is the 1 and 2. Josh has that all wrong. I will agree with Dan there.
Dude, the disrespect to this man right here.
Well,
the
consensus rankings. Tyreek Hill's going as the consensus wide receiver 3, and Cooper Kupp's going as the consensus.
I don't give up about the consensus rankings.
Well, I'm just saying what the consensus rankings are, and you were talking about disrespect. We're literally just talking about consensus rankings, and he's going higher for a reason. Because why would you take someone on the Rams offense when Stafford won't play more than 6 games either? It's literally the worst vibes. I'm not touching the Rams offense at all. Terrible offensive line. They have literally nothing other than just hyper targeting Cooper Kupp. That's their whole offense, and it's just going to run him.
That's perfect. Cooper Kupp's going to
run him into the ground. He's not going to be able to finish 4 weeks.
I mean, he was hurt last year.
He showed it in training camp already.
Last year's injury he had was a fluke. He was running the way the dude landed on him from behind. It was a fluke. It was just unfortunate. For the most part, though, I mean, Cooper Kupp has been he's been a pretty healthy guy. Other than last year, 2021, 17 games, 15 games, 16 games, 8 games, 2018, and 15 games. So other than last year, he's reliable.
Yeah. I don't think you can hate on Cooper Kupp. I think he's going to finish. I mean, I think he's going to push Justin Jefferson for wide receiver 1 this year, given he stays on the field all year long. But I don't think there's any reason that Cooper Kupp's not more. I think if Cooper Kupp plays a full 17 games, he will finish with more fantasy points than Justin Jefferson. I'm going to put that out there right now.
Yeah, I don't touch the Rams offense. And if he does play 17 games, Stafford's not playing 17 games. He's going to be playing with I don't even know who they're.
Stetson Bennett. Stetson Bennett has looked decent, I will say.
He has looked actually pretty good. You can't disrespect this man. I mean, what he did 2 years ago was unlike, anything we've seen. And, I mean, through his 8 games last year, what did he finish, Shane? He was probably still a top 20 wide receiver, missing more than half the season.
Last year, he finished as wide receiver 24, and he played 8 games.
That's nuts. 98 targets in 9 games.
Yep, definitely no disrespect to Cooper Kupp. I'm just taking someone that's very close to him on an offense that's a top 5 offense in the NFL compared to someone that's on a bottom 5 offense at the end of the day.
Okay, wait. Would you rather have like Austin Eckler or Cooper Kupp?
I'd rather have Eckler, but I have Eckler 1 spot higher than Kupp, so they're right next to each other. I have Kupp at his ADP. He's going as a 7th overall pick. I have him at a 7 on my big board.
Would you rather have Bijan or Cooper Kupp?
Bijan, 100%.
All right, Travis Kelce. Travis Kelce,
100%. Not even close.
Okay. Well, we got to find where you're close.
I'm literally just reading off my big board right now that was made before this, but yeah.
All right, fine. Nick Chubb.
What? I told you I have Cooper Kupp as my 7th overall player. Where he's being drafted is the 7th overall pick. That's where
are you really taking Jamar Chase over Cooper Kupp?
Okay, that's when we end this conversation. All right, we'll get into our.
I
NFL
love Jamar
seekers.
Chase, but dude, I don't get how you can't have Cooper Kupp as your wide receiver too.
We'll get into our NFL seekers wide receiver 2, and that is Jamar Chase. He's going as a wide receiver 2. He's going as a 4th overall pick. Me and Shane both have him at 2, and Josh has him at 4. He's going to be closer to Justin Jefferson than anyone else, any other receiver in the NFL. I think he's going to finish with more touchdowns than Justin Jefferson. And yeah, he's the most consistent receiver in the NFL last year with T. Higgins on the opposite side. And that's because he's got a top 2 offense in the NFL. And he's the star of that offense. He's got a legendary connection with Joe Burrow dating back to college, obviously. And yeah, I mean, Jamar Chase, the sky's the limit. I think he's right next to Jefferson. It's their production wise, it's going to be really close on who is actually more productive. And I'm taking him as the 3rd overall player right now.
In 12 games played last year, Jamar Chase had 9 touchdowns. That's
pretty good.
That's crazy.
I forget that he only played 12 games last year. Has there been any update on Joe Burrow?
Yeah,
Dude,
he's not playing.
Had this conversation a week ago.
Oh,
he's playing week 1. He's just not practicing until week 1.
Fine. Are you Dory?
Yes, maybe. I don't know.
Um,
If I'll speak a little on Jamar Chase, and he is he is the second best young receiver in the entire NFL right now. And so if you're going based purely on upside, yes, Jamar Chase is the pick. Jamar Chase, dating back to his college with Joe Burrow, these two were absolutely electric together, and it's insane that somehow the Bengals were able to get both of them. It doesn't even seem fair with T. Higgins on the opposite side. And Jamar Chase, almost like AJ Brown, has that like knack to score an 80-yard touchdown every game. He is that burner speed. He's got flawless hands. And he'll put up a lot of touchdowns. Like Shane said, he scored 9 touchdowns in 12 games. Which is close to almost a touchdown every game. And him and Joe Burrow are only just going to grow and get better together. So I absolutely love Jamar Chase. I actually do understand why you take him over Cooper Kupp. However, I do think Cooper Kupp is a safer pick in terms of receptions. I think, like Danny said, they're going to feed Cooper Kupp until he dies. So until he literally dies, until they run him into the ground. But yes, Jamar Chase based off of upside, and he's a younger player on a higher powered offense, for sure makes sense to, I see people taking him at the 1-1-2 right behind Jefferson. Literally most leagues it might go Jefferson Chase, which is crazy to think of, and that they were on the legendary LSU team together with Joe Burrow. Greatest college football team of all time.
Yeah, I think Chase should be the 2nd or 3rd overall pick in your guys' drafts, depending on if you want McCaffrey, if you want the first running back. But I think I might lean Chase, if I'm being honest. I think he's going to lead the league in touchdowns this year as well. I project 14 for him, so he's gonna have a big season.
Dan's confident. Dan's confident. He's just stern and confident on this.
1 through 5.
There's no messing around.
1 through 5 of your draft, like it could be all over the place between any of these guys. Like, wouldn't be surprised if it's Jamar. Wouldn't be surprised if it's Jettas, CMC, truly Eckler. Wouldn't be surprised. Like, it could be. It just depends on how those, the first overall pick dude wants to go. Does he want a running back? Does he want wide receiver? And then just down the line from there, some of these guys could fall. But it usually, most years it's like, oh, Christian McCaffrey, he's the number 1 overall pick. This year, it's obviously Jettas is the favorite, but it's less than
I think Jettas is the only choice, to be honest, at the 1. I feel like you'd be nuts not to go Jettas.
I don't know.
But Shane, would you rather go Jamar Chase or Christian McCaffrey?
Probably Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase or Austin Eckler?
Jamar Chase.
Jamar Chase or Travis Kelce?
Jamar Chase. You're going the wrong way.
All right, so he's your number 2 guy, obviously.
Yeah.
So if you have the 2nd pick, you're going Jamar Chase.
Probably.
Danny, what are you doing if you have the 2nd pick?
Me too.
And saying Jettas goes number 1.
Yeah, I'm taking Chase at 2 and then McCaffrey at 3.
Okay. Jamar Chase or Bijan?
Bijan's my number 4.
Bijan's got on. Bijan or Austin Eckler? That's the last question I have, just randomly.
Austin Eckler.
Okay.
There's your answer.
Figure it out with that.
We'll get into our NFL Seekers wide receiver 1, and it's the consensus first overall pick. It's pretty easy. I actually heard he's having a pretty good training camp, so that's pretty big news
for him.
Yeah, I heard he's opening some eyes over there in Minnesota. So I think Justin Jefferson's going to have a pretty fantastic season again. He's a legend. He's on a legendary career arc.
Cap, huh?
And just looking at him wearing that number 18 in that Vikings uniform, it's like a reverse of Randy Moss, and it's pretty poetic. I think he's going to end up being the GOAT, and it's just inevitable at this point. And if you can get him in fantasy, you're probably the favorite day 1 to win your league.
Yeah. I heard Randy Moss was calling Julian Edelman Edelnut in practice. I just wanted to throw that out there.
Are you gonna cite your sources? Where did you hear that?
Per Julian Edelnut.
Per the New Heights podcast. Shout out Travis and Jason Kelsey, of course. We're really tight with them.
Oh man. Justin Jefferson is him. He is the best wide receiver in the NFL. He's the best wide receiver in the NFL I think we've seen in a long time. And he's going to continue to do that. And he's going to be wide receiver 1 this year. He's probably going to lead the league in receptions, targets, touchdowns, yards, every single category. And, he doesn't have any health concerns ever. So get Justin Jefferson number 1 or you're crazy.
Yep. Yeah, that's pretty much the only thing we can talk about right now. Is if you guys are drafting number 1, it's pretty obvious who you should be taking. Take Jettis number 1.
Shane, any thoughts?
Draft him. I mean, he's only gotten better since 2020. Obviously, his rookie year, wide receiver 6, wide receiver 4. Last year, wide receiver 1. He's going to be wide receiver 1 again. Like, let's be honest. He's going to be wide receiver 1 again.
He can miss like a month and probably finish as wide receiver 1.
Shane, you can refer to you as
last year.
Him.
Last year, obviously, he was a top. He was a top 22 guy. All right, let me say this the other way around. 4 games where he was bad, and when I say they were bad, he was wide receiver 48 or worse. Like, they were bad games, and he was still wide receiver 1. So you're gonna have a couple of duds, but it won't matter.
Yeah, 184 targets last year, only 8 touchdowns, so that could definitely go up. He can easily be a double-digit touchdown guy every year. Jordan Addison coming in is the one, I guess, question mark, but I think that probably helps him. Thielen left, so it kind of just evens out, and I think that Kirk's going to be looking at Jettas every play.
Yeah, I mean, Justin Jefferson's never had a NFL season below 1,400 yards. And that's kind of says, 1,400 yards. I mean, he goes up 200 yards each season, 1,400, 1,600, 1,800. So lock him in for 2,000 yards this season.
That's incredible.
Cooper Kupp did it.
Yeah. 2,000 yards, Jettis, it's happening. Lock it in. Number 1 overall pick this year. And he's the one guy that I think the number 1 overall curse will not apply to.
Yeah. It has to pay off. It has to.
Oh, I lied. Cooper Kupp had 1,947 yards. So it's just, I lied. Anyways, we're done here.
Yeah. We're done. This is a good episode. A lot of arguments at the top of this list. There's a lot of things that we could move around, and I'm interested to see if Stores puts his money where his mouth is on his rankings come draft time. So really fun talking about these rankings with you guys.
Yeah,
yes, it's a blast.
All right, well, stay tuned to the NFL Seekers podcast for our running back and quarterback rankings. We had our receiver 20 to 11 rankings last week, and the tight end rankings already out. So stay tuned to the NFL Seekers podcast. Thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace.